Well, hello again. I'm Bill Russell, President of Lake Norman Chamber of Commerce. We have another edition of Around the Lake. And this particular episode, we're going to focus on economic development. We have Kathleen Rose with roseassociates. And Kathleen, good to see you this morning.
Good to see you, Bill.
Kathleen, we've got a very exciting program. Last time we focused on the Kane Arts Center and how that was going to transform Cornelius. But today we have Tim Perry. He's from North American Properties, and he's the managing partner. And he's going to be talking about how we're going to re-envision Birkdale. Birkdale 20 years ago, you remember when, in about 2002, there was the, hey, we're going to bring a mixed-use project to Huntersville, Birkdale Village. And it literally has transformed the Lake Norman region. Everybody wanted to be a Birkdale. What was your first impression when you heard Birkdale was coming to Lake Norman?
Well, it was interesting because first it seemed to be in a very undeveloped area, right off the interstate. There wasn't a lot. The Target Center at North Cross had just been developed a couple of years before. So it was the vision then of this mixed-use development, which was not commonplace 20 years ago. And that evolved from the shopping center industry and the Urban Land Institute and planning folks to say, what's the next evolution of retail beyond the mall? And, you know, as Tim will mention, or those in-between places where it's a little bit of a distance. If you recall back then, the nearest mall really for most folks up here was South Park. And so that was before we had North Lake Mall, and then Birkdale Village was created. And as we traveled around the Carolinas doing our public and private sector work, it wasn't just local folks that wanted Birkdale Village in their community, but all throughout the Carolinas. So it really became a model, not only within the state, but regionally and even nationally for mixed use development.
And Kathleen, for many folks that have recently moved to Huntersville, Lake Norman, a lot of people think that Birkdale is downtown Huntersville.
Right. And for a long time, it functioned and continues to function as the social center and, if you will, the downtown. In 2006, town of Huntersville, and we worked together on that plan for the downtown, which brought Discovery Place. So now there's some things happening within downtown Huntersville, which will give some even more amenities and some of that type of a thing. You know, really anchored by the government center, the town hall, and Discovery Place, which is a children's science center and a museum.
You know, even after 20 years, Birkdale continues to be the hub of activity. It's our movie theaters. Certainly Dressler's one of the nicest restaurants we have here. Kilwin's Chocolate. I can't talk about Birkdale without mentioning Kilwin's Chocolate. You've got so much going on there, but you probably needed to look and say, where is this going now? And we have Tim Perry. He is the managing partner for North American Properties. And I had the chance to go to Avalon last October with the mayor, Mayor Melinda Bales and Sally Ashworth, and to see that particular project, which will be very close to what we're trying to do here. Tim, talk about Birkdale Reimagined.
Sure. Thanks for hosting me this morning. Birkdale Village, you're right. It was an inspiration and has been for a very long time. But like most, what was then called probably a lifestyle or an open air center, just the retail world has evolved, and tenants, have evolved, and the institutional ownership here at Birkdale Village looked at it and felt they started to see the cracks, tenants leaving or not wanting to stay for a full 5 years, or a lot of short-term agreements. There's a very important connection between the landlord of today and the tenant of today. And in the past, that was very much you sweep the parking lots and you change the lights and you you mow the grass. And now they really look for an established and consistent brand, and someone like Lululemon that everyone loves, it does really well here. It's really important to them when they make a 5 or 10 year commitment to being here, that the ownership in the property is going to be there. Tenants have been in enough dead malls. They don't want to make those long-term commitments if they don't see a future and they don't see the consistency, and if they don't feel the partnership with the landlord to help them bring people to the property and into their stores. And we've changed the industry jargon. We don't call people customers; they're all guests. We don't refer to tenants as tenants; we call them partners. And our entire mission statement is to create meaningful experiences and extraordinary value for those we serve. And we looked and focused on the space between the buildings, not the space in the buildings. And while we have people who handle the leasing side of it, we have a much larger team, much larger, 4 or 5 times the size of the team that handles marketing. And that's really all about serving the community, creating a great space. And the faster we can get the community to take ownership and feel like this is their village, their downtown, then that's really our measure of success. We don't want to be the owner. We want to be the steward of the community's third place. And we've been doing that. We had a great grand reveal last night. Had 300 people here, was ticketed, donated the proceeds to Cool Kids Camp, which is a cancer organization for children. So we raised over $10,000 last night, and that was as important as the rest of the event was for the community. But right now, there are a group of 20 or so, 30 moms and people with strollers and babies that have self-organized and are out here doing yoga. And we have Boo Bash going on for the children, and a DJ and a band tonight. So this is the plaza here, my background behind me, and it really does represent that mix, that space in the middle, that experiential retail that is the evolution. So, and as tenants roll over, people will notice whether it's Brown Bag or Ease that's just renovated, or Kendra Scott, the storefronts will change from being just this kind of bland white band to every tenant really expressing themselves and creating a great environment. And now the next evolution is supporting what we've started. And that means, driving pedestrian guest experience and people to the property 18 hours a day, because we focus on that merchandising plan from the 6 a.m. coffee dog walk. Maybe we'll get a breakfast place in here. Rumor has it. All the way through the mid-morning yoga and the lunch, the daytime population, the shopping, and then the dinner evenings and the late night sports events. So something that creates or provides that service to anyone, really in the community who wants to use it throughout the day. And now, given the location where we are on a state route in the Interstate 77, it really does need the density. And Huntersville has done such a great job itself being a wonderful community and attracting and growing. And that growth is, it's a byproduct of the success that the town board and the people have created. It's a byproduct of the success of great restaurants in the lake and the community and the schools and everything else. And that the byproduct that is that people want to move here. And the millennial that's moving up here is moving from South Park, or is moving from in town, and has a different level of expectation of experience, has a different level of expectation of office space and residential and everything else. So for the town now to grow and support that, and to continue supporting the newly imagined and highly experiential Birkdale Village, we're talking to the city now and working through the process of some zoning to add some density here to the site, which is what creates the self-fulfilling prophecy. And you don't want the turnover in the tenants. You want to make sure that this remains, guarded by the community, because they didn't feel like they own it. And having the density is what creates that possibility. So we and I've got a presentation, Bill, but to keep it from crashing, I may just flash a few slides up as we go along. Okay. We've held some community meetings, and we've held our public hearing. The issues, I guess, with that the community has brought up is that more density. Everyone assumes that it immediately brings traffic, parking. Some people who don't like apartments just because they want an equity feel in town versus a rental feel. It always brings those types of concerns, and then aesthetics and keeping that small town, a small town feel, a small town downtown. And the three, we call it the 3 R's. Anybody who's a teacher knows the 3 R's: read and write and arithmetic. It's the basics. And the 3 R's of real estate are access, visibility, and parking. You got to have all 3 of those, and then to round it out with an experiential property, you've got to have a complete mix of uses. so that you have a daytime population. I mean, you think about it, there's less than 300,000 square feet of Class A office in Huntersville. That's nothing, right? There are, you know, even look over in Concord, look around. There are global 500 companies that whose employee base wants to live in this great community, but they don't want to drive that far. They just don't have any options. As people come during the day, I mean, think about never having to leave your office to go to lunch. Everyone's going to come to you. You're going to have, you know, when you bring clients, if you're a wealth management firm, you want to bring clients in, they're going to come to you. You're going to go down, you know, what do you want? You want the Italian place? You want the Spanish, you want sushi? You know, you never leave. And we work with them to provide a level of service so that it's, you know, if it's someone that's really important that's coming in from, you know, an overseas owned company, Concierge, that are there, they're greeted by name. So there's a whole level of quality that goes with office. And what that office brings then is not just, you know, the people who work there, but it brings them for lunch, brings their families here, and it gives them somewhere where they're actually not creating more traffic in the greater community, because they're not all flocking, you know, towards 77 and headed south. You know, you're kind of keeping it local. You're kind of reducing that. And the same goes with the residential. Last night, I met one of our residents at the event, and he sold his house at Birkdale Country Club across the street. He is renting here. He and his family renting here. They have a condo in Hilton Head. They have a lot in Bluffton where they're going to buy a house, where they're going to build a house. But what they wanted here wasn't an apartment. What they wanted was the lifestyle. They wanted to stay close to their country club and close to their doctor and close to their friends. They wanted to lock and leave. They wanted to be able to go downstairs. They probably don't have much more than a bottle of ketchup in the fridge, because why would you, right? When there's so many great options and things come down. But that doesn't mean, yeah, and our average resident, for instance, at Avalon in 576 units is 53 years old, and an average household income of over $200,000 a year. So these are young professionals, and these are people who want the lifestyle, and that's really what you're leasing. You're not leasing an apartment when you're here. And there's a huge demand for that, and a lot of people who want to stay close to home, stay close to grandkids, right? And again, when they're here, they're not getting in their car and driving somewhere to go to a restaurant. They're not necessarily getting in their car and driving somewhere to work if you have office. You know, they're here. The capture rate in a mixed use environment is exceptional. And I'll give you some examples of that in a second. And then the third component that we need here, the community needs, is an integrated hotel product where a business owner would be proud to have their employees stay, or you would be proud to put your mother-in-law or father-in-law up in a hotel when they visit, a place you would actually be proud to take people and have friends come in town and stay. And what better place? I mean, again, you know, imagine you've got your family, you bring them here, you drop them off the hotel, they put their bags upstairs, you meet them at the bar, you walk to a restaurant, they can stay out as long as they want. You get to go home and have quiet time. Or if it's a business, it's, you know, someone flew in from Germany because their business is here, you can take them to the hotel, you can have dinner and leave them on their own. And they're here in a great mixed use environment where they don't have to get in the car again, but it's something that brings pride to it and something that brings convenience. And that all of that mixed together brings people here 18 hours a day, right? And it brings, and not in a capture rate that actually is more beneficial than, you know, one-off development that's spread throughout the community. And then furthermore, locating that kind of density where you're surrounded by commercial, and where we're talking about it, Birkdale Village that exists today actually sits between any residential and the buildings we were going to develop. And it's not buried in the neighborhood. So you're not having to drive up or down Catawba to get to 73, to get to 77, right? It's all right here. And this is where the state and where the interstate system has been built to handle the traffic, and it's been built to bring that. And then the big benefit as well to community is not only now is there an economic development option for new commercial tenants, there's job growth. Job growth brings residential growth. Residential growth means everyone's home values are going up, right? We've got a great capture rate. We've got the infrastructure, and we've got a commercial tax base. And most towns and cities, I don't think people realize that building a single family subdivision does not generate enough property taxes to offset the impact on the system, whether that's schools, fire, roads, infrastructure, everything else. No one wants to raise taxes on people's homes. Those are voters. Who do they raise taxes on? They raise taxes on the commercial guys, right? And again, girls. They raise so a big portion of taxes for any city comes from the commercial development. And the 2040 comprehensive plan that was put together by Huntersville centralizes that development around these major nodes where you have the infrastructure to handle it, so that it's not sitting, so they're not having to look at every intersection outside every neighborhood throughout the greater, Huntersville or even Cornelius community, and make those decisions. They can put it in one place. They get the taxes, you get the jobs, you get the benefit of the capture rate. You actually have less of an impact on traffic. And in these communities, you have almost no impact on schools. You build 50 townhomes, you probably have at least 50 kids. You build 350 units, and our report says you have 10 kids. So there's just not as much impact on the system, and but a great benefit to everyone who then benefits from the system and the infrastructure and the services in the town. So that's how it works, right, on our side. And we're just trying to get through the system now, and work with the city, work with the town, work with the neighborhoods around us and the constituents to bring that to fruition, because you do have to have housing options. If every home here was $2 million, some people wouldn't be able to afford it. But if every home here is $400,000, there's still people, right, who aren't able to afford it. And if you think about a $400,000 house, the monthly cost with dues and taxes and everything else is about $2,700. That means someone needs to make almost $200,000, probably $180,000, $200,000 a year to afford it. But somebody can pay $2,000 a month in a rental, not own it, and be able to qualify for that with maybe $130,000, household income or less. So these aren't low end. These are housing options for people who choose this as a lifestyle and want to be here.
Tim, you've already made some substantial improvements just in the small time that you've been there. Talk about what we're going to see next.
Sure. So I'm going to close my video here for a second, Bill, and share some slides. Or not. You've disabled it. Oh,
I'm sorry.
That's see. Okay. I'll keep going. So there's some, if you look, maybe I'll do it now. Is that good?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm going to share a couple of things here. That infrastructure is meant, and if you look here, the north-south infrastructure is 77, east-west is 73 cars per day, 25,000, 27,000. These intersections are built to handle the traffic and built to get people off the roads and get people through. If you were to develop or build residential, I picked a couple examples here along Catawba. One is a 57 unit townhome development called the Pursuit of Catawba, and another is a multifamily retail deal up on Junker Road. If you look at those and the total net trips that they create, because you've got to go all the way around to get to the infrastructure, you're talking about a total of about 522 net trips, and only about $260,000 worth of taxes. These are net of because there's almost no capture rate. You can see that pass by trips number. Mm-hmm. Look at the traffic at Birkdale Village. Even though there's substantially more density, 401 trips, right? So the net trip capture is so great on the property that people aren't leaving their home to go eat. They're not leaving their office to go eat. They're going to and from. So it's kind of all peak, but the net trip is much less. And then the property taxes, you can see just from what we're planning to do, not including what's already here, the property tax would be an additional $600,000 a year. So, you get a 20% reduction in traffic. And these are the reports we had done. These are 20% reduction in traffic and a 3x multiple or 2x multiple on the property taxes that are created. And you get to do it right where it should be done, where you've got the infrastructure. What we've done so far has been this, as like I said, the space in between. We've already spent $20 million creating this great place, this great third space, this great community third place, We've announced a lot of tenants, Warby Parker, Beck on Broad, the small retail. I'll tell you this because we get a lot of questions about why don't you have more local retail tenants? You can still hear me, right?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
We get a lot of questions about why not local retail tenants, and I'll kind of pull back the curtain for the residents. It takes a lot of money to open up a store and put your sign and rebrand it and everything that is consistent with everything. It takes a lot of capital to stock a store. And as much as people love boutiques, there's not as much repeat traffic as you would think. And we just have had over the years a lot of local operators who had good locations not be able to maintain that scale of business at where they are currently. So for a local tenant such as Cosmo Gypsy or Beck on Broad, those are existing businesses in Cornelius, and we built these 200 square foot small retail boxes, and they're both tenants in those boxes. These are boxes that rent for a few $1,000s a month, so they're not huge commitments. These are boxes that are pre-built and built out, basically a sign and a little bit of product, and you can get the capture of being a tenant at a big property like Birkdale Village and the millions of people a year that come through without having to take the personal financial exposure of you and your family to open up and make a big long-term commitment. And if it doesn't work out, they're cancelable each year. They're 1-year deals. So we do and have evolved over the years to really try to satisfy that local demand. And it's here. If there's a local boutique or a local operator that wants to do something, please call, because there will be rollover in those spaces, and we built them specifically for you. Not trying to run the locals out, but give something that that's important to everything. Girl Supply is another option where you have almost a market and local folks use it. Here's some valet and everyone. Concierge, there's the small retail on the upper right, and Concierge on the bottom left. Use it. It's not just there for valet. It's not just there for the residents of the apartments. You need a reservation you can't get, call the Concierge. You have a kid turning 16 and you're giving them a car, call Concierge. They'll while you're eating at your restaurant, the valet will pull it up and put a bow on top of it for you, right? You have a birthday party, property. I've talked before. The second big thing we get is parking, traffic, and then parking. There are two decks, and I'll try to be clear. So tell me if it's not. The decks right now that sit behind like Barnes and Noble and behind Dick's they're precast, they don't last forever, and we have got to repair them. The cost of repairing them is equal to the cost of rebuilding them. So at some point in the next couple of years, not at the same time, but one at a time, if we do nothing, if we do no more density, we still have to tear down that deck 1 and deck 2. We still have to tear it down and rebuild it. Now we can order the precast parts and everything, and it'll take 4 or 5 months. It's not a long period of time, but if we do nothing else, we still have to do that. And I get a lot of questions about parking specifically because there are parking spaces, but people don't want to walk as far as they are. And what we'd like to do with these decks is actually build back a lot bigger deck, 400 spaces in deck 1, for instance, on the screen, a lot more parking, and a lot more parking close to the boulevard that has access for people to use. In order to do that, I got to add the density. I've got to get something to pay for it. And the currency you use to pay for something like that is actually the density. So parking deck 1 here would serve an office building, which means that 9 to 5, there may be spots reserved for office, but after 5 o'clock and in the mornings and on the weekends and anytime there's an event, those gates are up, and there's cross parking agreements and easements that allow 400 more spaces to be dumped right into the center of the village. And the same thing at deck 2, where we have a hotel, conference center, and the multifamily component there. So we're not taking any existing parking in order to support these new uses. We'll have to create new parking for each one to support each one of those uses. And the benefit is that those parking spaces are available when they're not in use during office hours. The multifamily piece will park itself, and that'll be gated for the residents, but it'll still have the visitor spaces, and it'll still have all of the retail spaces on the ground floor. So my point is, There's only a net addition to parking. There is not a net loss to parking. And the inconvenience of tearing down deck 1 and building back exactly what's there, and the inconvenience of tearing it down and building more than what's there, is about a month. It's not a big difference in the inconvenience we're going to bring. And we're not going to take any other parking away while we're doing it. And ultimately deliver an office building, all kind of, right? Like this. And we've gotten some questions on aesthetics, and this, there's a lot of work to do. What not everyone understands is a zoning. The only thing that's being discussed at a zoning hearing is our right to build 200,000 square feet. The existing office looks more like what's on the bottom right. That's what's adjacent. That's not exactly aesthetically pleasing either. I mean, see that in the community, think, oh, this is an old kind of, starting to get a rundown place. See something new and shiny and think this is a place that is emerging as something that's strong. This building, floor to ceiling glass, we put the terraces there intentionally so that we could really put the green, put the trees, and bring a green and a tree element specifically with all these trees at Birkdale Village onto the building and have those available for tenants. So we did try to bring the aesthetic from Birkdale Village into the building itself with all these terraces, but still have something that's modern and that a new tenant wants. They want them to be green, energy efficient, and the roof of this building even has solar cells that would power the majority of the building, not all of it. The rest of it we'd have to get from the grid. And then keeping the retail on the ground floor. Total Wine's space will have to be backfilled because Total Wine's leaving. And Barnes & Noble is just doing smaller footprints than they were in the past. So we're actually doing a Barnes & Noble new store now down in Atlanta, and it's 15,000 feet, not 25,000 feet. We'd love to keep them as a tenant in the office building. Newer finishes, and then a hotel where Girl Tribe or Pier 1 sits. Again, something that we would be proud of, something that fits in this community. It's not necessarily neon, some glass, some windows, a great lobby experience, a great drive up and a rooftop bar, something of that quality, right? Something that has those elements that you want to go and take your clients or your family, or you want to stay at while you're in town. Something that gives it some, a little bit of scale and creates a balance to the office building on the other side, with great lobbies, great rooms. And then on the end, Dick's Sporting Goods, from 5 years from now, their lease expires. And that's what we'd like to do there, is bring additional residential to that parcel. Again, it's self-parks. We're a long way from having to really, settle on design. The town and the staff, Kathleen, as you know from your past, every tree, every curb, every fire lane, every light fixture just about is approved with the town and with staff and with planning and design reviews. So these are inspiration, something that's got earth tones and something that blends in and something that fits the feel of everything else here at Birkdale Village, but something that brings some additional residents that are residents by lifestyle. These are not impacting the schools substantially. And then, lastly, you look around, everything, considering the Birkdale Village, the village itself sits between this density and the closest neighborhood. And across the street, we've already, the town has already allowed for a large multifamily project and a hotel where the driving range is. This node, everything else you see on here, south on the bottom side of Birkdale Village, is already commercial. The roads work, the infrastructure, it's there, but it's also being improved. And NCDOT will break ground in a couple of years on all the road improvements along Sanford and 73, and this interchange in particular, to make it hold even more and be able to carry even more traffic. So we think this is a great complement to the city. And from a tax benefit standpoint, the construction benefits are over 260 million. The employment benefits for Huntersville over 212 million. And we just ask for those who, if you have any questions, but for those who would like to reach out, because we get a lot of people asking questions, a lot of people are emailing the board, you can go to our webpage and click on the redevelopment tab. You can click here to support, and an email will pop up. Just take a few minutes and say, what? We get it. We want Huntersville to be successful. We want to be successful. We want our home values to go up. We want a place to work. We want a place that we're proud of to take our families and our friends and our associates and stay. And we want a place that stays relevant, that then every new tenant you hear about wants to be here because there are people here who shop there. And that's what, that density is what we need. And that's the currency we're going to get to make a better traffic, a better parking, and a better overall experience here in the village. So that's what's coming. That's the next step. And that's what's coming here at Birkdale. We're really, really excited, as you can tell, about continuing to invest here.
Tim, when I had the chance last year to go down to Avalon and with Mayor Bales and Sally and saw what you guys had done there, tremendous. And it's so exciting to see some of the new amenities that we'll see in Birkdale. Because again, it is currently today a hub of commerce and activity. To see what's going to be coming there is even more exciting.
Well, and we've got a good dozen tenants that we haven't even announced yet that we're still working through, that I think everyone will go like, wow, you know, we've got a community that can attract that tenant, right? And that's what the tenants want. That's what the community wants. But what's in my background? This is what it takes to drive that merchandising plan today. And then it takes people. It takes a mixture of uses.
Well, and as Tim mentioned, by adding the hotel component and the office component, you know, years ago, as he mentioned, as a lifestyle center was really focused on entertainment, restaurants, but you know, we really need now in most of these mixed use centers, it either has to be focused on lifestyle and residence or office and jobs and employment for that, what we call daytime population. You know, somebody's got to fill these spaces 24/7 to be able to afford the quality of amenities that folks have come to expect now. So that's important. And the other thing I think is important to think about, you know, for the community and what Tim's group is doing is that, as he mentioned, you know, we all tend to just kind of reach out to where the vacant land is and try to develop every square inch of vacant land. And the challenge is at some point, you know, all of our communities at the lake are just running out of land. And so where can they build that won't continue to create that stress of the traffic going further and further out to these outer reaches of things where we already have infrastructure in place? And how do you maximize the infrastructure that already exists versus, you know, bringing it out? It costs a lot of money to bring infrastructure out 3 or 4 miles or even a half a mile somewhere else. So it'll be important. And this North Cross, you know, exit 25 node, and for all the challenges it's had, once they get the traffic, you know, the interchanges figured out and working well, that's the best place to put the you know, density of development. Folks fear density, but it's a lot more challenging from a traffic standpoint to have density spread out all over the place rather than concentrated in one area. So those are the challenges, you know, that a lot of communities face, and Huntersville is really no different.
Tim, North American Properties, I think, has been around for like 70 years. You have a vast amount of properties that you manage. Can you talk about the number of various projects that you're involved in?
Yeah, so we have I mean, this is our business plan and our playbook to bring the experience to people. If it's not something we can that has that for us, we're not interested. We're pretty focused in this sector. And so we purchased Atlantic Station in down in Atlanta in 2010 or 11 and had that for 5 years. We did sell that. But then we developed Avalon, which we still manage, the hotel at Avalon, the office at Avalon. And I would say, you know, in a market that in vacancy and doesn't really have a lot to do with it when you do it at a mixed use development, the market in North Atlanta maybe 15% or 20% vacant, which is not bad for those who know. The office buildings at Avalon are 100% leased. That's 500,000 square feet that is 100% leased today. And the hotel there performs better than anything else in the market and better than almost every other hotel in the entire city of Atlanta. And it's because of where it is and it's located in a mixed use environment. So it's it doesn't recut the pie when you do this. It actually grows the pie. And that's the important part that the businesses understand that residents may not always understand. So we have a property in Naples, Florida. We have 4 properties in Atlanta, here in Birkdale, one in Cincinnati or Newport, Kentucky, around the river, and another in Yonkers, New York. and they all are functionally similar. They're a little bit different size. Birkdale has 300,000 square feet of commercial, whereas the one in Yonkers has 1.3 million square feet of commercial. Avalon has 600,000 square feet of retail and 100,000 feet of office on the second floor, versus Colony Square in Atlanta has 900,000 square feet of office and 200,000 square feet of retail. So the mix is not as important as just getting that ground level right and getting that experience right on the ground floor. So we really, at any of these properties, we start by lights, music, getting all the people on site to have the same uniform on, creating a consistent brand, activating and getting community engaged in the process, and then running it like Disney. Before we bought it, the landscape company might be out here with a leaf blower every Monday. They were here 12 hours. There are a lot of leaves in Birkdale Village. Now the landscape company is out here every day, 7 to 10. And as we tell them, at 10 o'clock, the park opens. So I don't care if you're a contractor and you're bringing, materials to build out a tenant space. At 10 o'clock, your truck has to leave the boulevard, and however much sheetrock you have in the store is what you can get done today, because at 10 o'clock, the park opens and it becomes the guests' property, not ours. The rest of the time we just maintain it. So that's how we run it. And that's how we run all of our properties. So we have 9, we have 1 in development, like 8 other properties now. And we may end up buying more. We're looking at a few already. But this is the plan, and this is the playbook for what we do.
On a selfish note, I've got to go by Joseph Banks and get some more slacks. Are you bringing any more men's stores to the area?
Yeah, there is another. There is a tenant that's here that wants to bring their men's store, because it's currently not their men's line into the property. But no one merchandises for us, Bill.
Well, you've got a really great mix of businesses there already. And again, it is a hub of commerce and has been for quite a while. And I'm very, very excited about the plans that you have to reimagine and reinvent Birkdale Village. So thank you for the time that you spent with us this morning. Kathleen, thank you very much also for suggesting that we bring North American Properties on board and look at what they're doing. And I'm sure we're going to hear over the next few weeks even more plans that you have.
Absolutely. Thank you for hosting me.
It'll be exciting. And it's a great economic development opportunity for the community as well. So I'm excited about the additional office space, Tim, in the hotel. So that'll be great. Perfect. Hope that we'll see how that all goes through the process.
Thank you. Well, let the board know. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, everybody, for watching, and thank you for joining us for Around the Lake.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. And I think next time we're in Davidson, right?
We are in Davidson next time.
Yes, in January. So, we're taking our tour around the lake. We started in Cornelius with the Kane Center. This time we're at Huntersville with Birkdale Village, and we'll let you all know what the exciting projects going on in Davidson will be in January.
We'll see you then, Kathleen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.